Hello and welcome, foolish mortals, to yet another episode of Distory, which I'm pretty sure we are now officially on to Distory number. Oh my gosh, we're on Distory number 7 and the sixth episode of the Haunted Mansion, which is bonkers to me. So yeah, I mean, I feel like we're only halfway through too. Today, we're going to be heading over into the ballroom or the grand hall, as they call it, which has our dining room, our ballroom setting, our organist, a ton of cast of characters. I have a lot of pictures set up for this evening to share, and also I have a little fun experiment. We'll get sciencey here, hence use in a little bit.
Hello.
Hello, hello. What is up? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
No, what? Yes, I can hear you. Hey, how are you doing?
I'm good. Happy Friday.
Yeah, happy
How are you
Friday. You know
doing?
what's funny is I was thinking about this. I almost have a shirt for like every scene. Like there's a Walrus Carp shirt for like almost every scene, which I just am so happy about. It's clear that I'm a little bit biased about our amazing series here with the Haunted Mansion.
I love that. That's so great.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was doing a little preview ahead of time, but we're already on to our 6th hour and 6th episode of the Haunted Mansion. So we've gone from concept all the way up through the seance room with Madame Leota. So without further ado, let me start off our intro. Hello, famished mortals. And here we are once again with a distory with Kate and Kirk. She is the second star to my right, my ghost co-hostess with the mostest, one Disney Cicerone, Kate. Kate, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm so happy for the weekend. I can't wait.
Yeah, really, really. It was like one of those weeks, huh?
Yeah, it's
Oh,
been wild. Yeah, here where we live, it's we're having the world championships for track and field pretty soon. And that means they're
oh.
trying to clean up the city. But sometimes when they clean up the city, we have a very large homeless population, and it means
Mm-hmm.
they end up going very strange places. So it's been a lot of very interesting things happening.
So you had some displacement that was encroaching on your normal.
Yeah, yeah, my place of employment. So it's been a wild ride this week. It's been like reality TV outside, which is really interesting. So
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, happy Friday, everybody. And today we are going to be focusing solely on the Grand Hall, or as most people will call it, the ballroom scene of the Haunted Mansion. So, Kate and I had already discussed this. We are going to go through concept. Then we're going to go into the very first ghost that we see, which will lead us to the Peppers ghost, which I have an experiment. Ooh, we can make our own Peppers Ghost at home. Very easy. And so I have an artifact that we'll throw a ghost onto a little bit later. So yeah. And then we have to go through every single ghost that's in there and every little detail. You have lists and things. We have to get started.
we have stuff to do. We
All
got
right.
lots of ghosts to explore. So
Yes, correct. So which concept are we starting with first? Do you have something, or would you like me to pull up as we
um,
are
I do have a
discussing
couple
the
things.
Grand Hall.
So let's start out with the very earliest almost like idea of the ballroom was that Ken Anderson sketch from way back in the day when it was a walkthrough attraction.
Hmm.
And you can kind of see the footsteps leading to the organ, but it's really like not a giant hall, but it definitely is like a place where people would dance maybe. So very early concept art
What's
that
unique too from that is the perspective, right? We didn't really lose that perspective. We are from an elevated spot, which I think is important, so that you don't lose some of the depth of, like, it is called the Grand Hall for a reason. Now, if we were on the lower level, sure, the height would be important, but we would miss out on all those amazing ghosts at the top and the ghosts down on the bottom. You notice there are no ghosts in the center, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yes. Yeah. That's a preview of things to come. So it's really interesting to me that so the ballroom itself is like the actual like center of the haunted mansion. It's like literally in the center. If you look at this map, you can see the ballroom is that one that's kind of yellow. I know that my words are backwards, but the ballroom is yellow. It's literally like the heart of
Yeah, and
go ahead.
yeah, it's like right here in the dead center, and right directly behind you, which is hard for you to see in this layout photo, but it says Doom Buggy Maintenance, which actually goes into the attic scene, which is kind of funny because the one time uh, I was actually in the attic with not with the lights on, but they had the maintenance slider corridor open, and it was a pegboard filled with tools and extra parts to fix the haunted mansion, which I thought was kind of wild. But they cued that into the layout, particularly of the Disney World version. I'm assuming Disneyland follows a similar look, but I know that layout because I just downloaded it earlier today, so I'm very familiar.
That's great. So we're thinking the same way. I love it. So it's interesting
Mm-hmm.
that this ballroom not only is it at the center, but it really is like it's like a not a, it's almost like a turning point of the story. It's the center of the story of the haunted mansion, and they also have it, there's a floor but no ceiling, and there's these windows that are impossibly tall if you consider what the outside of the mansions look like. There's no windows that are this tall. It's like it's almost like it takes you out of space in a way because it's so big you wouldn't expect it to be there. So it's a really interesting way that they kind of disorient you by throwing you into this very big space that really doesn't have anything to do with the outside of the building, and you wouldn't expect it to be there. But you have anticipated it because you've heard the music from the organ from the very beginning when you step in the foyer. And you remember the
Which
if we
different arrangement too on the music
yeah.
because now we're hearing it in a waltz arrangement, so slightly different.
Yes, and it's and if we remember back to our episode we did about the haunted mansions music with Dr. Elliot Grasso, he talked with us about diegetic and non-diegetic music. And so now we're actually diegetic would be the music that the characters themselves can hear, and non-diegetic is music only we can hear as viewers. And so this is the first time when we actually see we're hearing like the diegetic music that the characters can actually hear because they're waltzing to it and they're doing things, they're interacting with the music, versus it was all just music we heard as kind of like background music before. So we're taking this giant step forward into this ballroom is a transformation. And if you think of that, the words that the ghost host says as he comes in, right? He's I want to make sure I quote it exactly right. The happy haunts have received your sympathetic vibrations and are beginning to materialize. They're assembling for a swinging wake and they'll be expecting me, and I'll see you a little later. So the ghost host leaves us at this point. He's out. He's done. He's going to go party, and we're on our own. And suddenly there's this big shift that we maybe not even be aware that's happening to us, but is actually happening to us. Sorry, that was a little
Yeah.
long-winded.
So no, 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 no. Hey, listen, we applaud long-windedness here. I mean, we're already going on 6 hours. We can go a little bit more. I'm thinking we need to do at least 13 episodes of this to do it justice, and
Oh
to have
yeah,
some a good 13 number would be fantastic for it. But did you ever see this? This artwork is inside of the record, the Disneyland record version of the Haunted Mansion,
yeah, I've
which
seen that.
is technically canon, and it's beautiful. It's like one of those storybook style albums.
Yeah,
But you can tell that this is one of the earlier works because a couple of prominent figures are here. One, you had mentioned how the ghost host had left us in this concept art, which originally the Raven was the narrator before we got Hatchet Man or whomever you want to call him. Uh, the Raven is here, and then you'll notice even up in the chandelier. Normally, there's the Roman soldier with the Egyptian woman, but there is no Egyptian woman here, which is just kind of interesting. And then, of course, in this whole entire area, we don't get a grandmother or anything else. So it's kind of interesting just to see where any of the artwork goes. But I know you are a fan of this guy, which we will get towards the end. The organist, I know, is a
I
fan
know.
favorite of yours.
I know. It's like there's so much to talk about here. It's like we want to talk about it all at once, but we're definitely like, so let's like, we'll get back to the very beginning, because our plan that Kirk and I have talked about is like, let's just like inch our way through the ballroom, because we don't want to miss anything for you guys.
Well, I feel like one of my favorite parts of the ballroom is the ghosts that are entering from the outside, right? So
Yeah.
when you're looking at the ballroom itself, and this is going to be concept art that leads to actuality. Um, to the right of the table is all of the ghosts are entering into from a hearse for the swinging wake, if you will, or death day, as it's called in this book. Uh, and up at the top, this is concept art of a butler welcoming guests through a horse-drawn hearse into the grand hall. So this is actually outside of the Haunted Mansion, and this direct entrance, which we actually do see in the Haunted Mansion, is a hearse backed up, and it's being flooded by ghosts coming into that actual room.
Yes.
Let's see if I have.
I know. I'm looking for my picture because I know I have someone somewhere. Oh, I have a really
Yeah, I mean, I have one that's like slightly cut
like
off, but this will
super
do.
grainy, but you can kind of see the hearse,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like not a great photo, but um, if we if
It gives you perspective. Here's the table, and then if you go all the way to the right of the table, there's the door is over here, and then the grandmother's sitting right there. So that grainy spot was right here.
well, before we jump in with those ghosts, because I have like ridiculous amounts on those ghosts, can we back up
Oh
to
yeah,
like the first?
yeah, sure.
Okay.
Please.
So I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, and I do want to mention that this is like, we should definitely show this concept art, which we saw when I was in Disneyland. It's on display in Disneyland right now, which is like the original when people were walking through another concept sketch of the ballroom itself. So we do get
Which
this
I
original.
am I mean, I'm glad that we do get a band and we don't get it into the graveyard scene, but you can see this five-piece band is standing above the organist, and the organist is not there, very much like we get in Walt Disney World, where there is a pianist who's playing, and in our case is the ghost host who's playing in one of those earlier scenes right after the library, before we get to the endless steps. It's just I think it's cool that they take all these little bits and pieces. They don't end up exactly where they were created, and they end up later or earlier in the mansion. But they kind of like repurpose all the art into these little segments that they liked. Just how would they put it into practice?
Yeah. I have to say that the band kind of gives me like Star Wars Cantina vibes, not gonna lie. Every
Do
time I
do
see
do
this,
do 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 do
every time
do.
I see it, I think of the Cantina band. Not related in any way, but it's just a fun fact. So, backing up to the very first ghost we experience in this attraction, which is the ghost that is with the bust of Aunt Lucretia. I have a photo of it here. So, there he is. So he's actually the first ghost, but my records have told me that the duelists were supposed to be over there first, and they actually changed it to this guy hanging out on the mantle. So I'm not really sure when they made that change, but my understanding was that it was only supposed to give you like, it was the first ghost that would draw your attention down into the ballroom, and the duelist would keep your attention up high too long, so that's why they changed it and swapped it. And then Aunt Lucretia, of course, we have seen before in a couple different places. One is in the library, or in the portrait gallery of Disneyland, right? So
Mm-hmm.
Aunt Lucretia, and she's also
And
part of.
here's your cue for yours.
Yes, thank you, thank you. And she's also was. They say that she came from the original Sinister 11. The Aunt Lucretia is this lovely lady from the Sinister
They think
11.
she's a part of the couple, huh?
I've heard the theory. I wouldn't say that's like a guaranteed fact, but that's what I have heard. So, but she's for sure named Aunt Lucretia. She shows up 3 times in the Haunted Mansion. Once in the, I think she's 2 times in the library and then once on the mantle. So that's where you can find her. Stern looking lady. Maybe she's had a hard life.
Yeah, yeah. Yes.
I think this is the Disney World version. You can kind of see her in the center there in the top. She goes up there. So,
which, you know, I think most people, when they look at the Grand Hall, the first thing that they see isn't really that ghost so much. It's more so the grandmother. I think the grandmother holds your attention more. Then you get a little bit of the doorway, and then you're immediately on the table. Some people do go up to the chandelier and see these guys.
mhm.
I think almost everybody sees the dancing ghosts, a little bit of the organist, and then if they hear the audible firing of the duelist, maybe they get up there. I'm like thinking about like where my eyes track throughout that room.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm also, that would be like my natural track, where now I like look at weird, you know, shrouds of curtains trying to see outside. You know, it's
Me
just
too.
like normal.
I do like really, I look for the weirdest things. Like I don't even look at where I'm supposed to look anymore. And then,
Yeah.
so before we talk about the grandma, because I know we got a lot to say about that, the fire that's behind her is really interesting. It was originally the same type of fire. They used the same effect that Yale Gracie did in Pirates of the Caribbean, where he used mylar and lighting and like a fan to make it look like the world was on fire. And so they used the same effect, but they used it with a green light in the Haunted Mansion. But over the years, they did swap out all the ones in the Pirates of the Caribbean and also in the Haunted Mansion to a white silk instead of mylar. I think it's more for practical purposes, but also is very, very effective. And it does look like things are burning. I think you can see it here. You can see this in the Pirates of the Caribbean. All of the flames are just white silk with lighting and fans blowing them, which was good old Yale Gracie.
Very effective.
Yes. And so
I
I
mean,
think
extremely effective.
this is what it looked like when it was mylar. This is actually Yale Gracie here. So
I mean, that looks insane. Like that looks like he's on fire.
he does. This photo has to be one of my favorites of him. It's like it's so intense, but it's just, you know, he was
Isn't it in
so great.
he was always smoking a pipe. Like they have so many pictures of him, and almost every single one he's smoking. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, which is funny because like I know that Walt Disney like hid his smoking habit from everybody. Like he didn't want anybody to know he smoked because he thought it would be bad for
Yeah,
kids.
just for, I mean, we'll come back to this picture, but another picture of him just like with a big old pipe in his mouth. Like it was like the norm.
Yep. I
I
think
mean, if you think about it, I bet all of the ghosts and everyone probably has like a whiff of that on it, because pipe smoke is not something. It's very aromatic, and it's very. I'm just. Here's the things that I think about. I wonder what the models look like, and what they smell like. Is that normal? Probably not.
yeah, sure. They probably, well, I guess the ones that move probably smell like hydraulic fluid because I know that they leak that sometimes. So my guess is there's some of that in there. Oil, I don't know. It's the weird things I want to know too. So before I leave the fireplace, I have to say it. So the one in Disneyland has, if you look, I don't know if you can see it really well in this photo, but if you look at the grate of the fireplace, this will probably look familiar to you, Kirk, and it might to anybody else who's been looking at concept art with us. Do you
That's the
recognize
demon
this
face
too?
again.
Well, yeah. So if you go back to that one of the portrait, they got that from this, right? That's where we
Hmm.
see it show up. I don't think it's in the Florida version. I think it's only at Disneyland that I have seen,
I,
but I don't know
you
for sure.
know, I will take a look, because you know I've been looking at grading and ironing to try to find more demon like over doorways and stuff. So yeah, I will. That's on the next agenda. I'll look to see if I can get a picture.
Well, I think your ballroom is like so much darker than the Disneyland version, so it might just be harder to see.
You know, Mark just said that the other day. He said how much more vibrant everything is in the Disneyland version. versus the Disney World. Um, you don't really care either way, but for Tiki Room Radio, the Walt Disney World version did win the debate. But I kind of
The Disney
Mark
World
screwed
version
up.
one.
He didn't. Yeah, because Mark didn't talk about the Hatbox Ghost. He didn't talk about Haunted Mansion Holiday. He didn't talk about any of the history. So it was like if you were there, it would have been different. I think it would have went a different way.
Yeah, I need to be in that debate at some point. We need to have that discussion. But people were asking me to show this picture again, so that's what I was up to.
Yeah, no problem.
So do you want to talk a little bit about the grandma in the chair? I've been talking a lot, so I know you've got things.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so this is one that's I feel like pretty commonplace that most people know that uh, sculptures or molds, particularly of people, gets utilized multiple times through multiple different attractions. Typically, Pirates has a lot of ones. Hall of Presidents, the presidents get used surprisingly a lot. But in this case, for the Haunted Mansion, you may notice this grandmother from the Carousel of Progress, who also happens to be the grandmother from the Haunted Mansion. So in that rocking chair is the exact same grandmother, which I don't have much backstory on her particularly. I have a little bit more on some others, but yeah, they reuse the exact same molds because, you know. Hey, also, don't they look really interesting that they have this like dark blue around for like contouring, right?
Yeah.
Like grandma knows how to contour. Look at those lines, like, especially around her eyes is like this dark blue, and then it's a lighter blue to have that ghastly effect, which we'll talk about shortly.
Victoria says she looks dead tired.
She,
She does.
oh, but yes,
Oh, that's great. Yeah, uh so it's interesting in the Disneyland version, she appears and reappears, but I've heard that in the Disney World version, she just stays like illuminated the whole time. And I
yeah.
haven't seen it
So
in a while. So is that true?
yeah, so she just sits there. Yeah, she doesn't really. I've seen her occasionally go out and come back in, and I just noticed that this one has. If you notice, here's that hearse, and you can really see the casket though. So a casket has fallen out of the hearse. This is that doorway we had shown earlier, and people are rotating and walking through. They're kind of these guys are on a turntable, so their movement is based on like a turntable revolving, and these characters are really static, but their base that they're on moves and not. And then for the effect itself, I feel like we need to get into how do they make a bunch of ghosts?
Wait, don't go
Or
there yet.
am I
One more.
jumping ahead? Don't do it.
Don't
All
do
right.
it. Don't do it. Because I know where you're going. We want to go there. But so the grandma, the interesting thing is that she appears and reappears in the Disneyland version. And the thought is that she does that because she used to be timed with the duelists who appear and reappear. And that is why it's different in Disneyland versus Disney World, because they were planning to kind of have them all in the same area and they would reappear and disappear at the same time. So that I think that's why it's different in Florida, because they don't have that. They never ever had the idea of having the duelist there because they had already moved them for Disneyland. So, and then her chair that she's sitting on, can we please talk about that for a moment? Because that is another
I mean, tell
one.
me that doesn't. Yeah,
It's like,
doesn't that look like another Donald or Raleigh Crump's Museum of the Weird?
yeah,
It's
it's
right
probably
there.
the most sinister of all of them. It's almost like upside down in the face. And you see the one that's up in this corner up here. This one is the Disneyland version. And then the two bottom ones are the two ones that are in the Florida version. Both the square looking one is kind of that's the one that's in the endless hallway. And this one's in the library. And then this one's the rocking chair. So,
Yeah, the
yeah,
rocking chair one is way cooler. Look at the teeth. And that's the reason why if you look on the lower two, they call it the Donald Duck chair, which is just it's not accurate, but I can see it, because it's kind of like a bill, it's kind of got a hat. I get it. It's not,
yeah.
but I get it.
It's not.
The
It's
the
definitely not.
ballroom one is way cooler. It's
Yeah.
infinitely cooler than the endless hallway one. That's for sure.
Well, part of me wonders if they did this on purpose, where it gets more sinister looking the farther you go into the haunted mansion, like because we're creeping more towards like the creepier ghosts in the mansion. If you think of the attic scene that's coming, it's almost foreshadowing of what's coming in the mansion. So it's like things are
It
getting.
could, but like, don't you feel like the attraction gets funnier as we go along rather than creepier as we go along necessarily? I mean, like seeing that skeleton hanging is probably the most diabolical of anything that you see because it's like a real practical effect and it's physically somebody who's hanging. But I think I honestly think it's just like they might have replaced them over time and they've gotten less intricate or less detailed and just kind of like whoever replaced them just slapped it together. I
That
need to
could
know
be.
more.
Well, the chairs themselves, they have replaced those. Obviously, they look like someone new in this photo, but they've replaced the chairs because they found that what happens is people will spit on them to like ward away like demons. Because in some cultures, that's what you do is you spit on things, and then the dust like would harden with the spit, and then it would just basically crumble over time. So they have replaced the upholstery
Well,
because of that
listen,
alone.
out of everything from this entire conversation, at least now I understand why people spit on me so much. It's to ward off demons. I've always been curious, but now I know. And honestly, I don't want demons either. So I get it.
Well, you're wearing the clothes you got on. They're like, nope, we're not having that.
Yeah. That's well, hopefully I don't dry up with dust and crumble away, because I am irreplaceable.
You really are.
Oh, thank you. Can we ghost it? Can we ghost it up?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So let's get excited about the concept of how on earth do they make actual ghosts? Because frankly, it's one of the coolest illusions that you see in uh, the entire display showcase is these ghosts that have that illusory feel. So here again, I'm bringing this back up because you can see how holding up a physical hat on a illusion of a ghost, which is clearly in front of them. Most people think that these are holograms or lasers. It is way dumbed down in comparison. So what's actually happening is, and there's a practical reason why your doom buggy is in the middle. So we're in the middle of the ballroom because there is a clear glass with a reflection at a 45-degree angle where below there are ghosts and above there are ghosts. And the ghosts are actually on the same exact plane as you are, but they are being illuminated and reflected against that glass. And that is what it makes them projected out to look like they're physically in the space, which is not true. And this is named after, and this is the reason why they're called Pepper's ghosts, is because the guy who designed it as a practical effect, I don't know his first name, but Pepper, I believe, was his last name.
Yeah, I don't know his first name either.
They use these a lot in stage effects for shows, theatrical theater, and then of course magicians. Um, what's fun is that the Pepper's ghosts get used quite a bit throughout Disney World and other attractions. My favorite one that almost everybody in here now will go, "Oh, that's what that is in Winnie the Pooh." It's probably the only reason why I would ever go on Winnie the Pooh is just to look at the Pepper's ghost because it's the best part of that attraction. When they're doing heffalumps and woozles and Pooh's body comes out like he is sleeping, that is a Pepper's ghost. And you'll notice on the left-hand side, we are obscured from view the actual, what would be like the moving piece, that moving actual model. So I'll give you another instance of what these look like in a physical form. So here is what the dancers look like. So the ballroom dancers. Oh,
I
that's
have
the
the table.
table too. Ooh, yeah, the
Yeah,
table's cool too. So these guys are on a rotating platform, and the way that they make the ghosts appear and disappear is really simple. they turn off the illumination and the lighting effect, and then that's what makes them appear and disappear, which I think is quite cool.
Another
You
place we
ready to do
see
it? Yeah.
the Pepper's ghost effect is in the Disneyland ride Pinocchio, and it's the blue fairy at the end. And so if you are on Pinocchio and you see the blue fairy, turn to your right, like immediately, unless you don't want the magic ruined, turn to your right and you will see the actual figure of the blue fairy standing there. That it is reflecting, projecting. I don't even know how that's like what the right terminology is, but she's actually there and you just don't
Right.
see it. You don't look to your right. So that is another place they use that Pepper's ghost effect.
Well, I was researching and thinking, all it is like either a piece of glass or plexiglass. So I was looking for a small piece, and I'm like, how can I illuminate something? Well, insert DIY Pepper's Ghost at home. This is just a little crayon box cover for my girl's crayons. So this is little plexiglass, and you'll notice there's already reflections, right? Like, look, there's a Pepper's Ghost of, like, there, Kate, you're a ghost. Look, she's everywhere, right?
Ooh.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put a Pepper's Ghost onto our beautiful Florida skyline together. So I'm gonna show you how we are gonna do that using an iPhone with a loop of the hitchhiking ghosts, and then
Yes.
I am going to reflect them off of this. So I'm gonna dim us down here. We need to get turn the lights very eerie, right? I just need it to be a little bit more. There we go.
The
All right,
ghosts
and
are
let me. What do you say?
the ghosts are ready to
All right, let me.
materialize.
Oh yeah. Hang on. I gotta get this up like this. This is a pretty impressive setup. I got it on the knee here, but
I'm
hang on.
impressed.
I think this actually has. I think this actually has music. Hang on. I gotta angle it right. So, 45-degree angle. Look, now we have some ghosts, and we can put them wherever we want. So I'm gonna have to hang on, lift this up a little bit. And now our ghosts are hanging out on the beach. So,
Wow.
and I can actually put my hands, you can put your hand behind it and the ghost will actually physically be on there as well. But this is how they do it, is basically it's just a scene behind illuminated. And if we were further back, we could put them further back, bring it forward. It's a fun thing to do with kids too. I did it with our girls and it makes it little ghostly Pepper's ghost effect. So, yeah.
Wow. Brilliant, Kirk. Very good way of illustrating that. It's such an abstract concept. It's like, how do they do that?
It is, and right. So like practical. Now the difference is you can do it with a phone really easily because it's illuminated. Where if you were doing it with physical things, then you would have to have a light source as well. Hun, can you do me a favor and just turn that back on again? Thank you.
I don't know if
All
you
right,
saw
what were you showing?
I have an earlier photo too that I was showing while you were doing your initial one. I don't know if you saw this yet, Kirk.
Yeah. Like, we were talking because right here where I'm pointing is where the doom buggies, where you are looking out, and then above you can see the chandelier ghosts. The duelist ghost would be a little bit further down the line, and then down right below in the dead center is where our table is located. So the table scene, which we see with all the ghosts, is right directly below you. So you have physical models above and below, and then that glass is set aside, So, oh yeah, no problem. Listen, I'm a visual learner too. And I just was like, oh, this is a really easy way to represent it. So I'm glad. And it's fun. It's fun to do. I'm serious. Like, just grab your phone, grab something clear, plastic or glass, and do it with your kids. It'll be fun. Little fun thing. Freak them out.
So then if we go back to the ghosts that are coming through the hearse, like you had mentioned, like this is what they actually look like. They're on a big turntable.
Yeah, so there you go. There's like big old rotating, and that's why they're like always constantly like this, It's like it's not, there's no motion to them, although they could have made them. But it's so funny, right? Because it's such a simple concept that works so effectively. as if they are like real or bad, you know? So
Yeah, and it's an interesting it's interesting because they illuminate just the half of them that are like they only do half at a time, so that's what makes it look like they like are disappearing, and then it's an endless stream of ghosts is because they only illuminate half of it at a time. So that's how they achieve
can
that
I
effect
can
of
I
swirling.
yeah,
Go for it.
by that movement piece. Can I I'm gonna throw one other ghost out there that was a concept art that was going to be in the grand hall that never happened, and I think kids would have loved this, but maybe it was too goofy and that's why they didn't put it in, was the lion tamer.
Meh.
I really wish they did the lion tamer because I think it would have been so much fun and people would have, you know, I don't know. It's just such a cute concept, but never
I
got
mean, where would
used.
they
I mean,
that?
there's actually a lot of ghosts that never got used.
Like, where would they have put that? Like in the ballroom? Would they like near grandma?
Well, I would have. I mean, I would rather take the grandmother out and put the lion tamer in there. Like the lion had come in somehow through another room or door or whatever.
That
You
is a
know?
fun. Oh, that is a fun gag. Maybe the graveyard
Yes.
could have worked in the graveyard really
Hmm.
well. Humor in there. So the ghosts that are on that like swirling circle, one of them is a ship's captain who actually has the same sculpture as the auctioneer in Pirates of the Caribbean. And the interesting thing about this sculpture is that Blaine Gibson, who was the sculptor for these characters, he said that he made the auctioneer after a prominent Imagineer who worked on the attraction, but he never named who. But if you look at pictures of Mark Davis, which I was going to pull up one and I didn't get to it, it looks a lot like Mark Davis. So if I would wager that it is Mark Davis that this is modeled after. Just he has a very similar nose to this particular character.
So hang on, let me. I don't know why they're giving me. Let me flip
Are
this
you
around.
looking for? Yeah,
Yeah,
he's very similar face, especially in his like older years. But I mean
yeah. I
that's
mean, very.
I
I just think you need facial hair and that's it.
yeah. So I would say
Which
that this is Mark Davis,
Mark
but that's not
Davis and the auctioneer makes an appearance twice in here too, because not only is it one of the sea captain that's rotating around, but also, and we're jumping around, and I want to get to these guys later because we still have so much to do. But also, this duelist is the auctioneer as well, so
yes.
the exact same model. So technically, we got two of the same in the same exact space, and I didn't realize that they were Mark Davis, but pretty cool.
Yeah, isn't that neat?
So,
And
yeah, the more you know.
the other characters that are swirling around on there is there's an old lady who looks like this. And she's the same face as Julius Caesar, who's at the table, who we'll talk about in a couple minutes. But they got a lot of use out of that. And there's also one of the wenches that was in The Lion in Pirates of the Caribbean. So that was 3 places for that particular model. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they reused everybody.
they did.
Why start new when you can just take the same models and I mean, all they do is they're dressing them up in costuming and the setup. So
This is the other one. This is like, I don't know if this guy has a name, but he's also in the graveyard scene. And then he used to be, I don't think he is now, but he used to be on Tom Sawyer Island as a blacksmith. So he used to be around somewhere else. But basically, a lot of those ones that are in that just kind of coming in and swirling around are really their other audio animatronics that they've just copied.
yeah.
Yeah.
All
So
right,
I
let me
think
pull
that's
up.
all I got on that section. Do you want to
Okay,
move on to the table?
I
Are
think
we
we need to
ready?
move to the table next.
Okay.
Yeah. So let me. I'm going to just show the overview of the table. Right.
They're asking.
So we first start out. What's up?
Can you tell them what book it is? Because they're asking in my chat.
No problem. This and Boundless Realm are the two books that we've basically taken most of our research from, and then of course the internet. There's a lot of resources. This is called The Haunted Mansion: Imagineering a Disney Classic by Jason Searle, and then Boundless Realm is by,
Fox Note.
do you know?
Yeah,
Okay.
Fox Note.
So those are the two main resources. This one is more visual than Boundless Realm is. And that one's I feel like this is a more introductory of the Haunted Mansion history, where Boundless Realm is like you're a real freak and it's awesome. You
Yes.
know? Like
You want to get
it's like
into the
I've
Haunted
dealt with
Mansion.
this, I like this. Yeah, I mean this one is such a good, I don't like the way that it's organized necessarily, but the resources and concept art and the culmination of pictures. I almost wish this was like a coffee table book where it just had more pictures, because like some of the history is a little wonky and the organization of it is it needs help. um, but if we look where we're actually starting, the first ghost that we see is going to be the hostess. And then this guy, I was trying to look up, is that supposed to be like a representation of Bacchus or somebody to that effect? If it is
Which
a
one?
historical person, someone, that's the one who's drinking wine right next to the hostess, but they have like a very Greek look to them.
You're not talking about the king.
And
You're
then we
talking.
have, no, the king is here. That's Beacon Joe the king. There's another person in the middle. And then you have Small Thing. Then you have Julius Caesar. And then you have the passed out ghost.
Yeah, I have not heard of any particular name for that ghost, but honestly,
Yeah,
this I will say that Mark Davis was heavily influenced by a lot of classical literature and operas. So like the Flying Dutchman, Bluebeard's Castle, Dorian Gray, Poe, Dracula, Faust. He was very much into, and Shakespeare, very heavily influenced by Shakespeare. So a lot of these characters, even though we don't know if they're necessarily something, it's likely because a lot of ghosts came here to retire, they were influenced by a lot of those classical sources.
yeah, I'm leaning based on period piece and the fact that drinking wine, and they use Bacchus quite a bit, even in Fantasia, and then even in the Fantasia Gardens miniature golf. There's a whole Bacchus. It's like very similar look. So I don't know, and they're drinking, so it is what it is.
You
All
know,
right,
there's
do we
some,
want to start? You
yeah,
want to go
start with,
right to left? I know that's not normal, but it would make more sense just based on the way that the ghosts appear to us.
absolutely. Yeah. Why don't you go ahead and start with Birthday Girl?
Okay, so birthday girl, or the ghostess, is what kind of commonly referred to, is celebrating her death day. So that's why the table is set, and she's blowing out the death day candles, or birthday candles, if you will, celebrating her recent demise. Um, the I do have a picture of her up closer. She's a redhead, and she's really giving it her all. I mean, look at her lips are purple from trying to blow out those candles.
She's
And what's kind of
determined.
interesting, the practical effect that's on the candles. The candles aren't a Pepper's Ghost; they're illuminated just like any other light, but they're sequenced, and the sequence is kind of out. The candles light up before the ghosts arrive, which I think is kind of interesting. It's not like at the same exact timing and sequence.
Yeah, that is interesting. There's some people that I've heard say that she is a later or older Sally Slater, which was the kind of an interesting idea, though, that it would be the tightrope walker from the stretching room that we talked about
Mm-hmm.
a couple ago. So I've heard some rumors that she could be like, this is her in retirement in after death. But I don't see a resemblance, so I don't put a lot of stock in that. It's not like her dress is the same or anything. So to me,
I
it's just
I
kind of,
think I think I think once again this is just one of those classic make make more of a story than there was, because there
yeah,
isn't a great centralized story that connects all of these characters together. It's such just randomized pieces, and more, it's more effects and gag driven than it is storyline for certain elements, because there's so many characters. It's like, can all of them have a backstory? I don't know. I mean, they could, but
yeah,
there's 999 of them. Like, how deep do we want to go?
right. Yeah, and it's interesting to me about the table that she sits at the head of the table and not the king. And I think that actually is a theme that goes throughout the entire haunted mansion about the egalitarianism of the haunted mansion of the afterlife, which means everybody's equal. There's nobody that's above somebody else, even though they were in life. We see this again we'll see it later in the graveyard as well, that there's kings and queens having tea next to your average Joe. And so this is it's almost like a statement that after you die, like, you can't take it with you when you go, right? So the king is sitting on the side, and the random birthday girl we don't even know, is sitting at the head of the table. So
Yeah,
I love that
the
she's doing
only
that.
other person of royalty would be Julius Caesar, who's sitting on the other end. But you're right, the only one that's adorned with a crown, the king, as he's referred to, is in the center. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's an interesting thought. And here's a better picture of that unnamed, but I swear, Bacchian style character. I need to know more.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to do more research and see if there is. I've just never heard him named anything. Whereas the king,
I mean, I looked and there's nothing. It's going to be one of those things where we have to talk to somebody who is actually a historian because there's oral history that's not being discussed here, you know?
yeah. Well, so if we're talking about the king we know is Beacon Joe, is the audio animatronic that it shares with Beacon
Hmm.
Joe. We've talked about before. Beacon Joe shows up also in Disneyland's version, in the Bayou of the Pirates of the Caribbean. He's also um, on the what is it, the Rivers of America in the Disney World version. You can see him at the alligator swamp. Is that what it's called? Just fishing.
He is at the Alligator Bayou and he's
Alligator Bayou.
fishing. And coincidentally, those fish, this is crazy. Those fish are the exact same mechanism as the piranha for your Jungle Cruise,
Oh, I
but
didn't know
it's
that.
not the
That's
same fish.
like,
Ooh, look at that.
yeah, something I
Yeah,
didn't
it's pretty
know.
cool. But it bums me out. Like we have it over there on the rivers of America, but we don't have it on the Jungle Cruise. I'm
I
like
know.
super bummed we
Yeah.
don't have piranha.
Why don't you have the piranha? You need the piranha. That's for another day. But so yeah,
Hmm.
gonna get him here.
So we have Beacon Joe, of course, on the rivers of America, and then Pirates. He is in the second jail scene in the dead center is Beacon Joe. So the King, Beacon Joe, and a pirate, all the same person.
Right. Um, if we want to keep going with characters there, we want to do well. The one that's peeking over the table is always really interesting to me because I've it's in that picture, it looks like he has hands. But in someone's like
Yeah,
this,
it's actually gripping. It's gripping the table. Well, the problem is the viewing angle, right? So like you're looking at it at eye level, we're looking at it from above. So from above, we actually can see the hands, which are being obscured by the table, like
yeah,
where
that's
like this table edge. It's actually lower than the table edge. It's not like it's actually gripping the table, if that makes sense. It
right.
looks like it's gripping the table based on our viewing angle, but it physically is not gripping the table.
But I wish I knew that ghost story because why is he peeking over the table? Is he scared? Is he not supposed to be
Well,
there? Do you know? Because I
so
don't.
has a name though.
What is his
Did you
name?
know he
I
has a name?
know.
So has a name, and the name is Small Thing. And the only way that we know that his name is Small Thing is because in the original blueprints of the Haunted Mansion, he is labeled Small Thing. That's it.
That
It's
one
all
I believe.
the history that we have. Or Thingy. Some people also call him Thingy. Not kidding.
And
It's stranger than fiction.
if we talk about other lesser ghosts, the other one on the other side who's passed out under the table. And I've heard that sometimes because there's wine that's like spilling down the tablecloth at the table, sometimes people forget to have the glass tipped over when they reset things, and then it doesn't make any sense that the wine is spilled. But you can see the bottle with it that's
Yeah,
marked down
you can see the
Sharpie.
bottle right here. Yep, and they
Mm-hmm.
call him the passed out ghost
The passed out
for
ghost.
obvious reasons.
Yeah, he's
There he is.
passed out. And another thing
Yep.
about the place settings, I've heard that on the other side of the plates is a picture of how it's supposed to be set. So when they come back through and reset it, maybe after cast members have moved things around or whatever, they know how to reset things properly. So underneath each plate is a photo of how it should be, or a diagram rather of how it should be. And then so if you see ones that look like a hidden Mickey, that is probably not supposed to be there. It was probably a cast member that went in and set it. And then when Imagineering comes through and does an inspection, they reset it back to how it's supposed to be. So the hidden Mickey is
Yeah,
only there sometimes for that reason.
I mean, it's so obvious. Like when you look at a photo of it, it's so obvious that you can just take the teacup off and make a hidden Mickey, and that's all that's being done. But yeah,
Yeah.
not to spec in terms of Imagineering.
Right. It's not it does not go well with the story of the ballroom either to have like a really obvious Mickey head in it, you know. So just gotta keep in the storyline that would not do it. So, and then we got to talk about Julius
Well, we still
Caesar.
have, we have Julius Caesar.
Julius Caesar. I've got, let's see, nice old
Or
photo of
the
him.
other Blue Man group.
Oh, we have the same photo. Look at it. Julius Caesar
Mirrored.
too.
So creepy. I mean, he looks really, really creepy.
Well, and he came from the Superman episode where they say Great Caesar's ghost. That was a thing back in 1963, I think. No, might have been earlier than that, but I have a photo of that somewhere. I did have a photo of that here. So everybody watched the same like TV, right? So they watched The Adventures of Superman, and this expression, Great Caesar's ghost, came from there. So this was actually like a pun that they put in there because Great Caesar's ghost ends up in the Haunted Mansion, right? So, and then that also ties back to Caesar, which is back to Mark Davis's classical roots, like we talked about. That's another reason that character's in there. And he's famous, so he retired in the Haunted Mansion. So kind of a couple reasons why Julius Caesar randomly is sitting at that table.
Yeah, it's more of like not an inside joke, but it was just like become a vernacular phrase of the times, and that's why it's been utilized over and over. But then, of course, you would think, well, where would Caesar want to retire? A mansion. So it also kind of makes sense to have some historical figures in there as well.
Yes, for sure. And then, do we want to go
Is it time?
Up? Yeah.
Is it time?
Go up.
For these guys? So, if you didn't realize, I'm wearing our Gracie Manor drinking team shirt, which on the back it says we're here for the booze, BOOS. We have the one and only Erasmus Pickwick, who comes from like Charles Dickens time period. And then we have a Roman soldier and like an Egyptian pharaoh or Egyptian woman, however you want to play it. I have some imagery here of the concept art that Mark Davis originally did, which I think, I mean, they pretty much nailed it from concept to the actuality. And all three are, of course, drinking.
Yeah,
and there they are.
Pickwick also comes from the Pickwick Center that the Imagineers used to drive by on their way to work. All of them did. So that was partially why he's called Pickwick. It's because of the Pickwick Center.
Mm-hmm.
And then
apparently his storyline is he was a banker that made tons of money. Hence why if you look at his clothing versus other guests in the mansion, he has more accessories and layers, and even his coloration, because the more colors you had in like drab old England meant that you were affording dyes that had higher taxation rates. So I think that's kind of cool too. And then of course, this is fun seeing Yale Gracie pour the liquid or the wine through the Pepper's ghost. Like, it's just kind of funny. I don't know. It's a cute picture. I'm sure he probably had a blast. That was for him. That was not for anybody else. Do you know what I mean?
I know, that was super fun. And then I love this one of Mark Antony and Cleopatra are the characters that are seated up there on the chandelier having a grand old
So
time.
so are they actually that? Because I've heard that, but like because I don't know if it's canon, I don't repeat it. Like, are they certainly that or not? Because they look
Well,
like, I mean, obviously because of the period and the timing, but I've never once seen concept art with a description of them. I would love for it to be them though.
I would say that it's very likely. I would not like say, I would say I'm like 96% sure it's them, largely
That's
because
pretty
of the way,
high for you though.
yeah, largely because of the way that Mark Davis used all of the classical sources, right? And then if you look at this from Small World, right? This is Cleopatra, and it's done in the style of Elizabeth Taylor, which was the movie. I have a photo of that too. So this was the movie with Elizabeth Taylor, which you can see Mark Antony in. Okay, so
Mm,
that's where they came
yeah, I
from.
mean,
Small
and they
World.
are they arm in arm in the actual, can you pull up the models again? Because in
Mhm.
the concept art, they are arm in arm. And I'm trying to think of in the actual ride if they're like clearly
Yeah,
they're embraced together here.
yeah, they're arm in arm
Mm.
here too. So I
Yeah,
would
I
say
would I would say
like
you're probably right.
yes, because it's they're for sure. They look so much like them. Like, where else would they have an Egyptian princess and like a Roman soldier? Like, and knowing that that is
Hmm.
exactly where it came from for Small World, and it all happened around the same time. This movie came out in 1963. It's right on target for when they're kind of building all of these characters. I would say I don't know who else it could be besides them, unless they just decided to pick a random one. But that movie was so big with Elizabeth Taylor, you'd have to say, well, let's put some ghosts that they're going to recognize really quickly because you're moving by really fast. And who else would, like, people would recognize them because they were very popular at the time. So I'm pretty sure it
Okay.
is
I
Cleopatra.
you've convinced me. You've convinced me.
It's like Tiki Room Radio up
I
in here.
think it has to
Fun.
be them. Yeah.
See, I would do really good at that someday. I'm excited to
I
do Tiki Room
you
with.
you yeah, it'll be a scary day for me. I'll pick like nothing but like food things. Like it'll be like, oh, what's the best snack? It'll be nothing history. Just kidding. I could never do that.
That would be tragic. I actually did go to Disney trivia night last night, and I was so
Uh-huh.
frustrated because the majority of their trivia was all movies. And I was like, that's like not even, that's
Almost
not all of Disney.
almost every trivia is going to be movies or music. It's never the
Yeah,
parks. And
I
like
know.
that's what's unique about you and I is like I'm not that great at the movies or the music. Like I know enough, but like they always want to know dates. They always want to know actors or actresses, and that's where like I am very weak at. So, but like when it comes to the theme parks, that's where I'm most strong, but nobody cares about that stuff except for us. Like it's
I
like
know.
like a weird lapse of but like I think people who enjoy the attractions, right? They enjoy this stuff, right? But like it wouldn't be something that would be commonplace knowledge. It's just, what we're doing is bringing to light something that you've already loved and already enjoyed, and now you know a really fun fact about something you already enjoyed.
Right.
That's why I think this works as a series.
Yeah. And I have to say, they did have one round that was theme parks, and I nailed it. They were so easy. It was like 10 out of 10. I doubled our points. It was great. So I got theme parks trivia down. Nothing
Yeah,
else.
yeah, me too.
Felt like I let my team down though with the movies part. Anyway, that's neither here nor
They're
there.
like,
Back
oh,
to
she's Kate. She's like a freak for Disney. She's good at Crush, and you're like, ah, God, I'm terrible.
no, I just
I've been
no,
there.
it was tragic. It was very sad. So anyway, moving back to happier things. Let's go back to the ballroom.
Let's go back to dead people and ghosts.
Dead people.
So yeah,
Yes.
so chandelier. Do you have like some weird thing about the chandelier?
Not this particular one, but we had the one that in the
Okay.
foyer that was 666 because of the layout. Each layer had six crystals and six things. So, but I don't believe this one does. I do have something about the staircase. I just have a nice photo of what the stair. Oh, it's not nice. It's actually really pixelated. But the staircase, what it looks like in the back, which has peacock feathers in it, which is symbolic. Um, trying to remember exactly what they mean, but they are symbolic. And then there's the stairs are forced perspective, so they're smaller. And then it's all painted on the back. There's not actual woodwork on the back. It's all just a painted mural on the back wall. Just to give you guys a close-up look of that. I have to go look up what peacock feathers mean. So if anybody out there wants to go look them up for me,
Yeah,
that'd be great.
I mean, it is interesting because you can see back here, it does all look like molding, but all of it is just all 2D painted on.
Mm-hmm. So that's all I have for that part. I will make a very quick mention in the Disneyland version. At this point, before we get to any other part, there is just a little raven sitting up on the shelf, which we had you already talked about here. Was the original ghost host, and so that's why he's kind of. It's interesting that the raven is still there when the narration says the ghost host leaves, considering that the raven was going to be the ghost host. So I'm always interested that they left the raven there, even though they made the narration with him leaving. So that does tell us that the raven is obviously not the ghost host, because he's still there when the ghost host has shoved off. But the raven, who that has been nicknamed Lucifer, but is not Disney official. He's still hanging out there looking over the ballroom, but he's not in the Walt Disney World version at all. So just kind of an interesting thing that I like when I'm bored.
I think we only have 4 sightings, so that would put you at 5 if we matched all the other scenes. So
yeah, I think all the other ones do match, and that's the one different. So from there, do you want to do the duelists, or should we do the ballroom dancers?
I think we should do ballroom dancers, then we do duelists, then we do the organists, and then we get out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Peacock feathers symbolize a connection to the spirit world. Interesting.
I knew I had something I couldn't remember. Yeah, that's why they're there.
I wonder why that is. I wonder why peacocks in the spirit world. I don't know. I'll have to Google a little bit more.
Just a giant mystery. Why in the world would that be there? I don't know. Okay, so
the ballroom dancers.
Do you want to go? You want me to
go? I don't really have anything except for there's multiple couples. They all are distinctly different in terms of coloration, depending on the dresses or hair color. And they all are, again, on a turntable system that you can see below that rotates them around and spins them.
Yeah, I think that it's, I have the turntable you can kind of see here. You can see the turntables. Most of
2 turntables and a microphone.
Oh my gosh, that's gonna be stuck in my head now. Thanks. So they were not, they don't, the thing that I know is that they don't lead properly, like the women lead the men, because of the Pepper's ghost effect that they didn't take in effect when they made them, essentially, because it kind of is a reflection of it. So it reverses the image, much like our lives do. So the women.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of into the fact that all the women are leading, because it's definitely yeah. And once again, to your point about the ghostess who's blowing out the candles at the head of the table, it actually kind of works well too here.
Yes, and it's interesting. If we want to say like they never fixed it, you could lean into that egalitarianism where women are equal to men in the afterlife, because they weren't necessarily back when this ride was made. I'd like to think they are more so now, but that's an interesting idea. I don't think they did it on purpose. I do think it was an accident that they made them reflected.
Yeah.
But
yeah, they weren't going to change it.
They never fixed it, so.
But I also think that most guests wouldn't notice this at all. They're too busy spinning, so that motion blur and the fact that they are kind of ghostly, it'd be different if they actually physically saw these characters like this.
Well,
and not all of them are holding out like the old-fashioned way. Like some of them are holding around the waist, neck, not hand in hand, waist.
Well, this is one of the earliest like ads for the Haunted Mansion that Disney released, showing, and it does show the effects, and it shows the ballroom dancers in it too. So, and that it's interesting. I think that more so than anywhere else, you see that these really are ghosts with the ballroom dancers because they move through the furniture so easily. They just pass right on through all the tables and chairs and everything. And you're like, okay, how in the world are they doing that? They're definitely ghosts because humans can't do that. I think that's the place in this room that shows that more than anything else.
Yeah, because the other ones are interacting with the physical spaces as if they would if they were alive, right? Sitting at
Mm-hmm.
tables, being underneath one, standing on a chandelier, sitting in a rocking chair, where these
Right.
guys are the only ones that pass through, you
Yeah.
know?
Except, unless
Although
you
I
count
guess
bit.
the duelists,
The
I would count
duelists,
the duelists because
once,
they're breaking a plane coming out of a physical 2D surface and then rotating back in. I think
right.
that's pretty unique.
Right, and probably the ones that are running through the wall through the hearse too. I think are the other place where we kind of see like, oh, they don't have to interact with what's going on in the room. They can be independent of whatever's there, and they can go through walls and chairs,
Hmm.
all the things. So, speaking of the duelists, do you like to speak a little bit more about them?
Sure. So I know a couple of different stories. The big one that I think is the closest representation of the truth is that they are brothers. And the brothers are having an argument over money. And I believe that naming wise, they are the Sewell brothers. And there is a gravestone that showcases one of them dying in a duel. It was like Mr. Sewell something died in a duel. So I
Oh,
feel like that actually could be a legitimate connection. Hang on.
wait,
I
I've
feel
got
like I
it.
have this
The
gravestone.
victim of the dirty duel. It's this one.
Right. So Mr. Stool, the victim of a dirty duel. Also, it showcases in this book what we had already mentioned earlier, but this duelist is that pirate figure as well, which we see lower on coming in through the hearse, the auctioneer. The other thing that's kind of fun is one of these duelists does fire first and one dies first. So this duelist, the one on the left, who's the auctioneer, actually fires first and kills his brother who fires afterwards. So I know that's like a weird thing to talk about, but you do notice there is a sequencing on the shots fired. The one on the left fires first.
Well, and
And
that
this is
great
the actual Mark Davis original concept art as well.
and that gravestone that we showed you, that even though it is associated with those brothers, that is actually Bob, I want to say Sewell, pronounce it differently than me, who was a model artist who he managed a lot of the details of the original Disneyland attraction. So it's an Imagineer, as most of those gravestones are,
Yeah.
but it is associated with
Yep.
those brothers. As I agree with you that that's a story. I've heard that they're
Well, the reason why I think it's the truth is there in the video game. There was a video game for the Haunted Mansion. It came out like right around the same time period as the film did, and one of the duelists is in it, and he is named Mr. Sewell or Sewell, and specifically talks about getting into a duel with his brothers. So I think that kind of like exemplifies it a little bit more. Not like a video game is set in stone or canonized, but it is a Disney media, so I'm gonna go with it.
I would agree with you on that. If I mean that's another one where it's like 96%, like it's probably this, but we can't say
Hmm.
100%. We're
Yeah.
not in charge. We don't get to make those calls.
Hmm.
So, are we good with the duelists? Gonna move on.
I think we're good with the duelists. I think we need to go to wait, do I have oh, I did want to show just this early Mark Davis concept art that's like just a sketch. I don't know.
Oh yeah,
I think it's cool to see like a
that's great.
wireframe sketch. Hmm.
I
And
love
then
those.
there's, I believe, here we go. Here's another one of the Pepper's ghosts. He really liked taking pictures of the illusion of this. Like he had a lot of fun with this. But yeah. And what's crazy is the portrait behind it has nothing to do with the duelist. He's like
No,
literally just holding up a random portrait so that he can show off the effect, which is
yeah,
funny.
that is really funny, and he's It's interesting because that effect it was like 100 years old by the time they used it, but people were still like
Yeah.
amazed because they'd never done it on such a large scale as they did in the Haunted Mansion. It was always like one figure, one thing, one small object. It was never
Hmm.
like entire room full of characters.
Ooh. Grab your plastic lids, kids, and go make some ghosts.
Oh gosh. So the organist. Let's
Your
go to the.
boy, it's time. It's time.
Oh my
There's
god.
so many details. We got to look at the. I feel like we should look at the concept art, then the physical organ, and then maybe the actual character. What do you think?
Yes. Do you have the concept art handy? I have the organ handy.
I do have. I have this one, which I thought I had one more. Oh, I just have a picture of him. Or is there one? No. All right, hang on. Let me flip this around.
So you can see from the very beginning that there was always this concept. It's very Phantom of the Opera, right? With Mark, if we talk about Mark Davis and the classical sources, this was inspired by Phantom of the Opera, who we know, if you're not familiar, is this kind of tragic figure who plays the organ, and it's very ominous. So they would already recognize an organist playing like this, and they would associate it with Phantom of the Opera and that kind of spooky story anyway. Again, like you can see the skulls that are coming out of that organ. That actually carried in a lot of the concept art because that was in this. Was it in this one? Okay, so this one, it's not coming out of the organ here, but you do see the skulls are like over here. Idea of like skulls flying around the room and it being associated with the music of the ballroom is a concept that I think has just been there since the beginning.
Well, I mean, this is a part of the record, and you can see some specters coming out of the actual organ again.
This is what the effect looks like in the actual attraction. And I actually have a picture of what that looks like for the Peppers Ghosts too, which I just found and I was really excited to see because it's just, yeah, you have to see this one. That's what it actually looks like on the other side. So it's like a big like wheel that spins around and then they illuminate the ones that are in the front of it. So
Which,
the or
look
go
how
ahead.
horrifying that thing looks like in real life. Like if you saw that thing spinning, because it spins like at the end of Wheel of Fortune, like that's what it
Yeah.
is,
Yeah, pretty much.
and it's like a water wheel.
Yeah, I think it's scarier like looking that way than it is just with the
I
Pepper's
think
Ghost.
I think it's yeah, I think it's the physical form is way scarier than the Pepper's Ghost.
Yeah.
Like that thing is horrifying with all that like ragged cloth behind all the skulls.
Yeah, it's crazy how they made that. And like you think like how did they make the trails coming from the ghost? Well, it's that cloth that's behind them. So that's how they look like they're kind of
Hmm.
moving and
I
having that.
mean, it is so effective.
It really
I
is.
mean, for like just a practical effect, it really looks like these ghost skulls are like they have like a contrail behind them, almost like a plane would, of ectoplasm following them. It's just tremendous, tremendous effect.
Well, and stay there with that image. Go back.
Oh, sure thing.
this
Okay.
so this organ, this is from the movie 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And in the Disneyland version is the actual prop from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea because they used a whole bunch of props from the like Captain Nemo's area, like what is it, like cabin area? I can't remember what it's called, but they used all the props in an attraction in Disneyland when they didn't have enough things for Tomorrowland and they had to like fill in space. So they made this like walkthrough attraction where you could go and see the set essentially. So they took the organ after they dismantled that attraction. They took that organ, they put it in the Haunted Mansion, and now every other Haunted Mansion that exists has an exact replica of the original one from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. But you notice that the fan pipes are different. And the reason for that, let me
Yeah,
see if I can find
they
it.
don't like they literally don't flute out on this one.
Well, you remember this from Museum of the Weird. That's where we get the fan pipes from. Sorry, I have to make it so you can see it better. There. So, yep, we get the fan pipes from the sketch from Museum of the Weird with Raleigh Crump. That's where we get the pipes from. Rather than the fanned ones, those are more straight up and down, straight from the design. So, really cool feature.
Which I love. I mean, there's so many little details, but I think a lot of people miss this one. The uh
Oh, the
the
bat.
bat that's holding up the music.
Oh, I love the bat. I love the music.
It's one of the coolest pieces. Yep.
Well, and so you remember we were talking about the music and the diegetic versus non-diegetic. So this is the first time when we see this organist playing and everybody's interacting with it. This is the moment when it's like we have turned a corner. We have shifted in our perspective in this room, and the organist plays such a big role in it. And the person who I don't think I have his name written down here, but the actual organist who played the otherworldly concerto, which is what that organ music is called, they just told him to improvise, and so he did for like 12 minutes, and that's why we get all the different versions of the otherworldly concerto that we get, is because it was a really brilliant musician sitting down at his instrument and just improvising and doing variations of this one haunted mansion theme for 12 minutes, and you can hear it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's on Spotify. It's on a couple different places. Search for Otherworldly Concerto, and you'll hear all the different variations of it. And it's wild and it's brilliant. He was a great musician, and his legacy lives on in the music of the Haunted Mansion.
hmm And I had a question on here. Are these pipes bones? They are not. They are just metallic. I
Yeah.
mean, it would have been a good opportunity, but because they were utilizing a film prop, there was no need for them to recast it.
Absolutely. So that, for me, is all I have on the organist, unless you have something else. That's all I got.
Well, as a matter of fact, I do.
You gonna teach me something? I'm
So
excited.
well, the organist does have a name. We now know his name, and we only know his name because they came out with a Funko Pop, and they sold it physically in Walt Disney World, and I believe Disneyland got it for a hot second. Um, and of course, our ghost jar. So Victor Geist. What does it say on that label of that ghost jar?
Well, let me read it to you. Our ghoulish maestro knows every song, plays every instrument, from organ to gong. His melodic music will place you in a trance, makes a ballroom of spirits stand up and dance. Always performing, no time for rest. He is dying to play at your final request.
I love that. I love that.
That,
So yeah, there he is, Victor
kind of,
Geist.
oh, there he is. Just have a little bit.
I feel like they did Victor Geist in this concept art. Doesn't he look a lot like the hair of another ghost that you guys have that we do not?
With the Hatbox Ghost?
I think he's very Hatbox Ghost, even in his cloak.
Yeah, his wild hair.
I mean, if you look at hang on, let me try to pull up real quick a Hatbox Ghost
Oh, I
concept
got.
art. I mean,
Oh, I don't have the concept art. I have the picture of the actual one. He does have a similar hat.
yeah, yeah, it's a similar hat and this similar hair wave too. I gotta find this one. It's a Mark Davis because he just has that scraggle look to him. Here, and you'll see the cloak too. Doesn't he have
Yeah,
like that scraggly hair and that cloak and that hat? I
like
don't know.
the
It's just
hunched
me.
over the organ kind of thing. It's in, yeah. I bet they're kind of
Yeah,
inspired by
you
each
know?
other. Yeah, that's really interesting. I never really thought about it that way. They're not the same character, but they're definitely like their look is inspired, and they have the same like cape.
No, well, that's what I'm saying. His cloak is so, and it even has a high collar and the top hat. Like, I don't know. But in actual practice, hang on, let me pull up what did I misclick? I don't need
I
that
don't know. I
up.
can't
All right, there we go.
remember.
In actual practice, his hair is a lot more maintained. So from
Somebody come
concept art, it gets
there.
lost a little bit.
We
Yeah.
come
Well,
and
you know
try to
what?
get
There was one time where people were saying, and this is another one of those like urban legends, is that the hair on the dolls of It's a Small World grow,
I've
and they
heard
have to go
that.
around and clip them. And I'm like, do you know how hair grows? Do you know how puppets work? Do you know how dolls work? It's like, but it's probably more fun to say that.
What is that C.S. Lewis quote? Like logic. Why don't they teach logic in schools these days?
Now, before
Oh
we
my goodness.
leave, before we leave, we do have one last person to talk about in our version. So we had mentioned previously the Sinister 11, right? These are all different portraits that are usually in the very beginning loading sequence, but a couple, like the actual couple, are a little bit later on in the attraction. Well, the latest one in the attraction is the opera glass woman holding the cat. She is actually on the wall right before we go into the attic. So you'll see Victor Geist playing the organ, and then there's like a side wall like this, and that's where the opera woman is sitting at, which she is so. There's almost no illumination or exterior lighting, so you can't see her at all. I know because I'm looking for her specifically, but like, unless I point it out, it's so hard to see because
We
it's
should
just
point it
on
out.
this one little wall.
Next time we ride it together, you have to show it to me because I don't think I've ever seen it. And it gives me
Mm-hmm.
the vibes of like the ghost that's near the opera singer in the graveyard. That's kind of like the really spooky one. It definitely has that same appearance to it. It's real, and it's interesting that it's next to the opera singer in the graveyard. I have to
Hmm.
think about that.
Yeah, I mean, you think the eerie specter that's in that tomb is this woman? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying it has a very similar appearance.
Yeah,
Like
like
the
there is a wavy vibe. It's and that's the one that has the hidden Mickey in the palm. It's like
yeah,
holding up a hidden Mickey going like this.
that's exactly what
It's
it
my
looks
version of
like.
the ghost. It's like one of those car salesmen, like giant inflatables. That's what they're doing
Big
in
two.
there, trying to sell hidden. Do you want a premium bar? But not true, but could be true.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to just do a little bit more research about that because that is really interesting to me. I have not spent a lot of time with the Sinister 11 because I grew up with the Disneyland version and they weren't there. So I want to do a little bit more research about that because that's interesting. And
I mean,
as
all
we,
those characters are kind of fun. Like the two. There's actually three right off the bat that make a lot of sense. Jack the Ripper, Dracula, and Medusa. Just because like they have historical significance, they could be people that would have retired here at the mansion, and of course have the significance to where some of the inspiration came from some of the other ones. So
right. But I just need to do more. I need to do a deep dive into the Sinister 11. That's my next
yeah, they're
assignment.
fun. They're very, very fun.
So as we won't go into the attic right now. We're going to pause and wait for the attic. But I will say the reason that we're going from the ballroom to the attic, I believe, is because the ghost host has left us, and now we're left to our own devices. Because we were on a tour, right, with the ghost host. If you think back to the butler giving us a tour of the mansion, walking us through, well, he says, I'll meet up with you later. He goes to party with other ghosts or wherever he goes, and we're by ourselves. So like you don't go on the attic of somebody's house on a regular tour, right? That's like where all their secrets are. So the reason we end up in the attic is because we're left by the ghost host and we kind of stumble into it. And that's where a lot of the sinister, dark secrets are hiding in our haunted mansion, which we will talk about next time on our next episode.
The skeletons are not in the closet. They're in the attic.
They're in the attic.
I never really. I'm gonna be honest with you. If I was stuck in a creepy mansion with a bunch of ghosts, the last thing I'm doing is pulling downstairs and walking up. Not me. I'm out. I gotta go. I see that door though. That looks good. That's where I'm going.
Yeah, I
That's
think I'm with.
interesting. I'll have to look at that because like where how do you get in the attic? I've never thought about that. Like how do we get in there? Because like most attics are not really accessible via stairs. Where I would assume we're using stairs here.
I know it's like we do ascend a little bit into it, I think, and then and in the Disneyland version, at the very least, in that dark space where you have your Sinister 11 portrait, we have a beating heart sound that is really prevalent that you can hear. It's like ba bum ba bum ba bum ba bum, and it's like
Yeah, I
four.
wish I wish we had that. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
cool.
it's intense actually. So and then of course we'll save all the attic things for later, but it's a bit of foreshadowing. But yeah, I always thought it was really interesting that the ghost host leaves us and then we kind of just get into a whole bunch of trouble because we're off the tour.
Hey, wait, is that like a glowing lady in a dress up there? Ah, let's check it out. So, all right, next, I'm trying to think like next episode is probably just going to be the attic. And I know that sounds crazy, but there's so much in terms of, and I'm going to bring in some resources from the record because I think the record helps kind of piece together some of the storylines. So maybe I'll listen to the record again and try to see if there is a beginning sequence of like how we get into the attic because that gives us a canon of how we leave. I don't like it. I have another theory that I like better, but that doesn't mean it's rooted in truth. And then we still have to do the graveyard scene, which the graveyard scene easily will be an hour to an hour and a half episode. Then the crypt, then the exit slash pet cemetery. I think Memento Mori deserves its own spot. And then we have to do the other versions just briefly, even if it's like Disneyland Paris. I mean, Disneyland Paris needs its own
Yeah,
episode.
we have to do the overlay, Nightmare Before Christmas overlay. That's like such a
We
huge
have
part
to
of it.
do that. Have to do that. Yeah. I mean, it is the greatest overlay that they've ever done, and it's
Mm-hmm.
tremendous. It's so well. Mel and I were fortunately there when it was open and it was holiday. So I've never actually done Disneyland's Haunted Mansion without it being um, holiday, which is like
Have you seen the
crazy. But
Hatbox Ghost though? Were you there for the Hatbox Ghost? Or was that
I can't remember. I cannot remember when it was. I do remember having pumpkin spice beignets though at the Mint Julep bar, and we ate at the Blue Bayou. So like we did some really fun, iconic things.
you're due
But
back for another
it had to have
trip?
been it's been over a decade. I'm gonna say 11 years since I've been to Disneyland. A lot has changed.
Yeah, you're due. You're due for a trip, my friend. Come on out.
So yep.
We'll do Disneyland. It'll be great. Well,
Uh oh, I
uh,
lost you. I lost you for a hot second. Yeah, one of these days I will be getting out to Disneyland, and it'll be a tremendous, tremendous geek out fest. I can't wait for that day to happen.
yeah, I'm really excited. But I am excited for the rest of the series too, because there's so much left to talk about. It's just like I can't, especially for the attic next week. I feel like we've touched on the history of the bride, but we've never really gone in depth about the bride history. So we can do a little bit more of that because she is the highlight
Yeah,
of
I
the
mean
attic.
we touched barely in the stretching room with Constance because that was a reskin of the painting when they updated the attic scene. But yeah, it wasn't fully. There's so much to still do. What's going to be crazy, Kate, and you're going to think this is nuts. I think we're going to go longer than even when we go for Keys of the Kingdom. I think we're still going to be doing this series after we do that tour, which we are going to go on this. Alicia was sweet enough to book for Kate and I to do Keys of the Magic Kingdom, which is basically like a behind the scenes tour of a lot of attractions. You go in the utilidors and all this stuff. So we'll be streaming before it. We'll take hard content during it, and then we will stream again after, which will be so sick. So, but yeah, very very excited. But I just know like we're already into the first week of June, and we have at least 5 more weeks of Haunted Mansion, which
I
I
know.
don't care. Like this is like awesome. 13 hours of Haunted Mansion. Who doesn't want that?
Oh, and someone asked if we're doing it together in Walt Disney World. Yes, we are. I'm going to fly out to
Hmm.
Disney World, and we are doing the tour together, and we'll stream side by side or together on that day, or at least I'll hang out with Kirk while he streams. I don't know, haven't decided yet. And then I think we're probably are we going to Skipper Canteen for dinner? Are you on for that?
Oh my God, it's the best place.
Okay.
Yes, it's the
So
best place to eat there.
show you some guys some secrets of the Skipper Canteen because it has so many Jungle Cruise references. So do that
Dude,
too.
so Lana and I ate there, I don't know how many, like maybe a month and a half ago. And I'm like, hang on, I gotta go to the bookshelves. And she was like, what? And I was like, just leave me alone. I was gone for at least 15 minutes. And I'm like, I'm sorry, we're waiting for food. And she's like, it's okay, don't worry about it. And I literally just filmed all of the bookcases because the amount of titles that are hysterical or interesting, or like J. Thaddeus Toad has a book there. Like, it's just so cool. It's like
There's
amazing details
Easter
in the
eggs.
library.
There's
Hmm.
Easter egg books that refer to other things. There's one, yeah, I won't give away all the things, but I could spend an hour walking around and looking at stuff in that restaurant, trying not to make people feel like I'm creepy looking over their shoulders and to see all the things. It's my favorite.
My my least favorite part of going to Tony's Town Square, I actually really like it, and they changed their menu, is they have in the back right a window that looks out into the alleyway where you can see Lady and the Tramp eating, but it's right next to a table. So I'm like, yo, hey guys, hang on. Let me just
Don't
like
mind me.
I'm like, hang on, let me just I'm just it's a quick video. You're not in it. Don't worry about it.
It's not
What are you
awkward
gonna
at
do?
all.
One of these days I have to actually ask for that table and then it won't be weird.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be the day. That'll be good.
Okay, well, I guess we'll wrap this up. My name is Kirk from Walrus Carp, your spot for WDW theme park clothing, including our Gracie Manor drinking tea. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Distory, episode 6 or part 6 of our Haunted Mansion series, episode 7. We did Pirates Dirty, and we need to go back and really do that another time, another day. But with me, as always, is the wonderful, super talented theme park historian that we know and love, Kate, the Disney Cicerone. She is putting this out on an RSS feed on multiple channels as a podcast, so you can listen to this again. And then we put it up on our YouTube as well. And Kate, I think this would be a good time to talk about maybe your website.
Oh yeah. DisneyCicerone.com is my blog, and you can read. I've been writing since 2020, so it's mostly Disney history, but it also has a dose of inspiration and encouragement, and just some things to think about the way that Disney Park influences our life. So that's something you can go visit that if you'd like to learn more. And of course, on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, I do obscure Disney history and facts, and also some encouragement there as well.
Love it. And everyone says this, and you're going to be upset that I say it. Most melodic voice ever. If you ever, I'm shocked that more people don't use your audio because your audio is so well thought and well written, and then the narration of it is just so soothing. So anytime that I've seen anybody use your audio against their like wonderful videos or pictures from in the parks, it's always a pleasure. But like everyone says the exact same thing, and I am mirroring that sentiment.
Oh, well, thank you. I really appreciate that. I honestly never thought my voice was any good. So it's like surprising to me that people want to listen to it. So that's amazing.
Yeah,
And
it's
but
true.
I know something that I've always felt like I'm supposed to do is write. Writing is something that's a huge passion of mine. I'm currently writing a book that is set in the Disney parks, and I'm about a quarter of the way through it. And so hopefully in the next year, we will have a new novel for you guys to read that does include some Disney facts, and also it is a romantic suspense kind of story. So it has
Ooh.
and it does give a little bit of insight into live streamers in the parks. So just in the world of us, but and it's a little bit inspired by our Pocket fam as well. So it's not based on anybody in particular because I don't do that, but you guys are my inspiration for this particular book. So
Well, that's very cool, and I'll be the first one to buy a copy of it. It's awesome. I just, you know what's what's really cool is that we have such an inclusive group that really does prop each other up in our own things, but we're all bound through this love of the parks together. So it's a beautiful group. If you ever want to join our Discord group, which is basically like this great chat community where we all support each other through motivation, through if you're having a tough time, like there's always somebody there to chat with. And then, of course, geek out and learn how to do all thing Disney parks better. Save time, save money. Walruscarp.com/links, second button on there on Discord. It's amazing. I spend so much of my time in there, and it's like we built great connections with tons of people. So, in terms of streaming, and a bunch of people have said happy birthday to me, and I really appreciate that. My birthday is coming up this week, so I'll be in the
Yeah,
parks, but I will
I'm
not be
glad it's
streaming. I'm going to
gosh,
take family time. So, yeah, what's
oh
up?
God, I missed it. I was like, oh no, happy
Oh,
birthday.
no, 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 dude, don't worry.
7th.
Listen, we all have, it's my unbirthday today, Kate, if that matters. Is it your
You're a
unbirthday
big fan.
too?
It is. Can you believe
Oh
that?
my, it
What are the
is.
chances?
So, we'll switch up the streams next week. We'll still do Rad Tea Party. We'll still do Tiki Room Radio. We'll still do Distory. But a Monday stream and an all day Wednesday stream will not be in the cards, but there will be a Thursday all day and a half day Friday next week. So just a little bit of a switch up because I want to spend time with the kiddos in our favorite place. So we'll be at Disney, but not streaming. So
That's great. Family's important.
it certainly is. It certainly is. All right. Well, Kate, you enjoy the rest of your weekend, and thank you again for teaching me. I always feel like I come away with just a little bit of a better understanding of the attractions that we talk about. So thank you so much. And thank you for all the birthdays. I appreciate that, guys.
Yeah, you taught me a whole lot this time too. So I feel like we learned from each other, which was great. Took some
Yeah, I
notes.
mean that's the benefit. And then we geek out and talk about this stuff on streams and content. So I love that.
So great.
All right, guys, everyone have a great weekend and thanks for being foolish and mortal with us. See you guys.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for being with us.